Good morning. We are in chapter 13, Carbohydrates, and I'm on page 434. Like every other chapter, every unit will be a segment with the PowerPoint. So we'll discuss in this segment what are carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are compounds of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And I want you to look on page 434. You will have explanations, examples of simple carbohydrates. The simple carbohydrates that we come across are table sugar, lactose, cellulose, starch. These are the common carbohydrates we come across, and the basic building blocks are carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Also called saccharides, which means sugar. Okay? The basic component of these carbohydrates is the glucose molecule, and based on that we call them sugars too. So in this unit, the learning goal will be to classify a monosaccharide. Aldose, ketose indicate how many carbon atoms. So we're basically looking at the structure of a carbohydrate. So now again, I would want you to focus on page 434 and 435 also, because there is much more information given here. This is the carbon cycle we are discussing. So the carbon cycle starts with photosynthesis, and this happens in plants. The carbon and carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, the hydrogen and oxygen from water, and the energy from sunlight using the green pigment in the leaves. This is the end product, the food, synthesized by plants, photosynthesis, synthesis of this molecule. And this is a respiration using a series of chemical reactions in the body. When we consume those food items, we are going, for example, here you see the food. These horses are intaking the food. And now in the body, through a series of metabolic reactions, the glucose molecule is breaking up into energy, water, carbon dioxide. So we are going back to the reactants we started with. So this is the carbon cycle. So this is, such as glucose, are produced by photosynthesis in plants. They are synthesized in plants from CO2, H2O, and energy from the sun. They are oxidized. This is respiration, oxidation, respiration. These are chemical processes that break down the glucose into giving energy and carbon dioxide and water. So carbohydrates are a big part of the carbon cycle. Now, types of carbohydrates. Again, explanation on 435. So while we are talking, we can also look at page 435. So types of carbohydrates are monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides. So three different categories. These are the simplest carbohydrates. So we call them monosaccharides because the basic unit cannot be broken down further. So a monosaccharide cannot be split into anything else. That is the basic building block. So one of the most common carbohydrates, glucose, is a monosaccharide that we come across. In the carbon cycle, the molecule that we saw synthesized by plants, glucose, that is a monosaccharide. A disaccharide is a molecule that is made up of two monosaccharide units. The most common disaccharide we come across is table sugar, sucrose. So you can find the hydrolysis of sucrose. This is called hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is breaking down into the two monosaccharide units. So the disaccharide has two monosaccharide units. Hydrolysis is breaking the two apart. So this is a sucrose molecule. We can take it as an example. This is a general example. breaking into two monosaccharides. So we call it a disaccharide. And you can see the equation on page 435, the breaking down of sucrose, a disaccharide, in an acidic environment in the presence of an enzyme to give you glucose and fructose. These are the two monosaccharides. Now we are looking at the polysaccharides. Polysaccharides have multiple monosaccharide units. And when we are hydrolyzing or breaking these polysaccharides, you get several monosaccharide units. So a carbohydrate can either be monosaccharide, disaccharide, or polysaccharide. There are more trisaccharides and all, but we are looking at these general examples to give us an idea what carbohydrates are. So what are monosaccharides? The monosaccharides consist of 3 to 8 carbon chain with 1 carbon in a carbonyl group. We know what a carbonyl group is. We discussed a carbonyl group. There is a carbonyl group. There is a carbonyl group. So in a monosaccharide, you can have from 3 to 8 carbon atoms in a chain. Okay? Here you see 1, 2, 3, 4. Here you see 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are examples of a 4-carbon chain. They contain a carbonyl group. Both have a carbonyl group. Containing an aldehyde group are classified as aldoses. So we know this is an aldehyde group, a carbonyl group connected to a hydrogen. So if the monosaccharide is connected to an aldehyde group, you call it an aldose. OSE is the ID for a carbohydrate, similar to OL, the ID for an alcohol, AL, the ID, these are names. The last 2 letters are OL, so ethanol, OL, alcohol, AL, aldehyde, ONE, ketone, OSE, carbohydrate. So you can see an aldehyde molecule, aldose, containing a ketone group are classified as ketoses. Again, you have a carbohydrate with a keto group, ketose. So ketone, 2 carbons. The carbonyl is connected to 2 carbons. Have hydroxyl groups on all carbons except the carbonyl carbon. So you see hydroxyl, OH. OH groups are present with every carbon except the carbon with the carbonyl group. So this is how we ID a monosaccharide unit. Monosaccharides are also classified by the number of carbon atoms present. Now in the past slide, we have classified carbohydrates based on the aldehyde or a keto group present. We are now going to classify a monosaccharide based on the number of carbon atoms present. So 3 carbon atoms, OSE, carbohydrate. Tetra, 4. Penta, 5. Hexa, 6. So if you see these prefixes, you will know how many carbons. And again, this is a carbohydrate, OSE, OSE. Okay? Aldopentose. Now we can break the name down. Aldo, containing an aldehyde group. Pent, 5 carbons, carbohydrate. Keto group, hex, 6 carbons, carbohydrate. So looking at the name, we can understand or figure out or come to a conclusion about how many carbons, is there an aldo or a keto group, carbohydrate. Okay? So aldopentose is a 5-carbon saccharide with an aldehyde group. A ketohexose is a 6-carbon saccharide with a keto group. So now let us name these, okay? So we'll see how to connect all the information we just gathered. Aldo. So I'm looking at the aldehyde group. Tri, 1, 2, 3. OSE, a sugar molecule, a saccharide. So this is the common name, glyceraldehyde. This is the name we were just discussing based on our classification. So aldo triose. Now I'm coming here. Aldo, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tetrose. We see an aldehyde group. We see 4 carbons, aldotetrose. This is the carbonyl group connected to a hydrogen, an aldehyde, and the rest of the carbons have a hydroxyl group each. So this is aldo, aldo. Pent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. OSE, carbohydrate. Now here I am, keto. There's a keto group. The difference is the aldo group, the first carbon in the molecule has the aldo group. In a keto sugar molecule, the second carbon from the top counting down has the keto group. So pay attention to the location of the carbonyl group in the aldo molecule and the keto molecule. Okay? So this is keto, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hex, hexi 6, ketohexose. This is a fructose molecule. This is a monosaccharide. Glucose is a monosaccharide. Fructose is a monosaccharide. So this is how we connect the name and the structure. Now let us see if we can identify these molecules here. I'm going to look at identify aldo or keto. First, let us do aldo keto. There is an aldehyde group, aldo. There is a keto group, keto, ketone. So carbonyl groups, this is a ketone, this is an aldehyde. And again, remember, the keto group is in the second, the carbonyl second carbon. Now, aldo keto, is it a tetra, penta, hexa? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hexa. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Penta. Aldohexose, ketopentose. Again, the OSE, the last 3 letters, confirm that this is a saccharide, sugar molecule that we are talking about.